Hello and welcome. Tonight, National Assembly passes the 2025 Appropriation Bill after reviewing the key highlights of the bill outlined.
On business news tonight, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company projects headline inflation to drop to 33.35% in January amid decline in the price of fuel.
On sports, 7 times.
25. And for government, it's time to get into action to improve the economy, tackle insecurity, and provide more infrastructure by spending the much-needed funds. This is because the National Assembly has finally passed the 2025 Appropriation Bill. Federal lawmakers passed the bill after the upper chamber reviewed the key highlights of the document, which outlines a total aggregate expenditure of 54.99 trillion naira. The budget breakdown includes significant allocations for recurrent spending, capital projects, and debt servicing, as well as a projected fiscal deficit. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Mizuki, now reports.
2 months after the President Bola Tinubu submitted 47.9 trillion naira to the National Assembly and jacking it up to 54.2 trillion naira last week, lawmakers reconvened to consider the report of the committees on appropriation following weeks of budget defense sessions.
This is committed to the Committee of the Whole for conclusion.
First, the upper chamber dissolves into an executive session to finalize talks on the budget of restoration, securing peace and rebuilding prosperity, before it is then submitted by the Chairman Joint Committee on Appropriations, Senator Adiola Olamilekun.
Having worked in harmony with the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriation and the subcommittee of the two chambers, the Senate do consider and approve a bill for an act to authorize the issuance from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,396. The President took proactive measure and made a new provision of $200 million, which is equivalent to about 300 billion naira in the service-wide vote to fill the gap created by the United States government. Suspension of the intervention to the global health sector.
The breakdown includes significant allocations for capital expenditure totaling 23.96 trillion naira, 14.32 trillion naira for debt servicing, 13.64 trillion naira for recurrent expenditure, 3.65 trillion for statutory transfers, and 13.08 trillion naira for fiscal deficit, with a 1.52% deficit to GDP ratio. Despite a further increase of 746 billion naira, some lawmakers are dissatisfied, citing the absence of some critical projects.
I sponsored a motion here, co-sponsored by 35 senators from this corridor, on the need to construct standard gauge rail from Port Harcourt through Aba, Makurdi to Maiduguri. We waited, the breakdown came out, and that rail line has zero allocation. We have to intervene. The presidency has opportunity for supplementary appropriation. Anytime he brings a request here, this Senate will consider it.
The same discontent reverberates in the House of Representatives during the consideration of the bill.
Report of the Committee on Appropriations on a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion.
The bill is subsequently passed in the Green Chamber. The harmonized appropriation bill also skills third reading in the upper chamber.
The motion is on the floor. Those in support of the motion that this appropriation bill 2025 be read a third time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. This bill is read a third time and passed. And I hope that this appropriation bill will contribute to moving Nigeria forward and will assist Mr. President in his renewed hope agenda to renew the hope of Nigerians in all facets of life.
The chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriations explains the reason for the departure from the established January to December cycle in a separate briefing.
What happened last year as a result of change in pattern because we now have a new DG budget who's still observing the system and the process of how to go about this. But I can assure you, this time around is going to be different. The budget for 2026, the preparation will start as early as July of this year. Then we can expect, latest by October, the Appropriation Bill for 2026.
He clarifies that the nation is currently running only two budgets, the 2024 budget capital, which has been extended to June 2025, and the recently passed 2025 budget. Meanwhile, against a backdrop of recent concerns surrounding the alleged missing firearms, the Inspector General of Police has vowed to launch full investigation into the matter. He's also appealed to the Senate to, from now on, hold further hearings on such matters he considers critical and sensitive behind closed doors. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
We'll call it another significant breakthrough by the Nigeria Customs, and you may not be wrong. In Lagos, operatives of the service have handed over 1,599 seized assorted arms illegally imported into the country and 2,298 live cartridges to the Office of the National Security Advisor at a ceremony. Now, this event drew the attention of security bigwigs at the Customs Federal Operations Unit Zone A office in Ikeja. The official ceremony comes at a time when the Customs made seizures of some illegal arms in May of 2018 and additional rifles hidden in a 20-foot container at the Tin Can Island Port Command of the service, among other interceptions at the land and air borders.
The venue, the Customs Federal Operations Unit Zone A office in the Ikeja area of Lagos State. The event attracts top echelon of the nation's security agencies.
He is now the Director General, National Center for Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons.
They are here for the official handover of arms and ammunition seized in May 2018 at the Tin Can Island Port Command of the service.
Through established diplomatic channels, we partnered with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to engage the authorities in Turkey, leading to definitive identification of the purchasing company. The investigation trail, which was supported by financial records obtained through court orders in Nigeria, enabled us to establish the identities of those behind these illegal arms shipments. And through our strategic interagency cooperations, particularly with the assistance of the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, we successfully prosecuted the case before the Federal High Court in Lagos, Amankwa. All of them were convicted on 8-count charges bordering on improper importation.
Commending the collaborative efforts between the Office of the National Security Advisor and all arms-bearing agencies, the representative of the NSA and Director General of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons, Johnson Kokumo, reiterates government's commitment to preventing the circulation of illicit arms and the conviction of illegal arms importers and their allies.
The principal suspects who brought in 844 assorted rifles into One, Port Harcourt, those who also brought in weapons through the international airport at Ikeja here in Lagos, who were equally intercepted by the Customs Service, who were handed over to the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons. Investigations were conducted, suspects arrested, they are equally processed through the court. And our criminal partners in Turkey are equally in the net over there because we did this in collaboration with Interpol.
The seized items are then officially handed over. The customs boss adds that while the court has convicted those involved in the case of the first container, the case file of the second container has been handed over alongside the seized weapons.
It's a thing of pride when an individual or an eminent personality from a country travel to foreign lands without experiencing any hitch, especially at the point of entry of any destination. But when that opportunity isn't granted, it leaves room for complaints and sometimes unsavory remarks. Well, the National Security Advisor, Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, has slammed the Canadian government over its decision to deny visas to the Chief of Defence Staff, General Christopher Musa, and other senior military officers. Speaking at the maiden annual lecture of the National Association of the Institute for Security Studies in Abuja, Mr. Ribadu describes the visa denial as disrespectful. The reaction of the NSA comes after General Musa narrated how he and some senior military officers were denied entry into Canada for an official engagement.
Mobilizing stakeholders to curb insecurity in Nigeria is the focus of the maiden annual lecture of the Alumni Association of the National Institute for Security Studies, which attracted security experts. Emphasizing the need for Nigeria to assert herself on the global stage, the Chief of Defence Staff, who is the chairman of the occasion, starts the gathering with an explanation of how his delegation invited to an event honoring war veterans in Canada were denied visa.
I was actually meant to, by yesterday, have been in Canada, Vancouver, Canada. There's an event to honor our veterans, those that were injured during battle. Remember last year, the Duke of Sussex visited Nigeria with his wife. Through the Invictus, they have a foundation that they try to raise the morale of troops all over the world that have suffered one form of deformity or the other in the course of defending their individual countries. So we're supposed to be there. And actually, half of my team have already gone, but unfortunately, the Canadian Embassy, for knowledge best known to them, denied us visa.
Addressing the denial, the National Security Advisor condemned the action of the Canadian government.
Thank you for the courage to say that Canada denied you. They can go to hell. Even though it's painful, it's disrespectful, but we are people, we are strong, and I agree with you. We have to fix our country. We have to do it well.
Nevertheless, the focus of the engagement was not lost as key issues to address the nation's security challenges are highlighted.
People are afraid of us. Meanwhile, we're busy talking ill of each other. Carry your social media. You see people talking, oh, this government is horrible, this one is horrible. It is to the advantage of the developed world, like the CDS said. If we have security, we will develop. Without security, there can't be development. Without development, there can't be security.
So why can't we fight some miscreants, some charlatans among us together? The community should say, you cannot come here. This is what Tafa Balewa has done. If you go to that community to attack them, you'll be sorry for yourself. I challenge anybody to try it. And this is the way we have to do. We have to allow some level of armament for the communities, and they can serve as the first line of defense.
The recommendation at this meeting is that all the necessary support, including communities, should be mobilized to address the nation's security challenges.
In part two, after the break, the Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal adjourns proceedings to March the 3rd for parties in the petition to adopt their final written addresses. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. The National Assembly passes the 2025 Appropriation Bill after reviewing the key highlights of the bill, outlining a total aggregate expenditure of 54.99 trillion naira. Nigeria Customs Service hands over 1,599 assorted arms and 2,298 live cartridges to the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons. Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal adjourns proceedings to March the 3rd for parties in the petition to adopt their final written addresses. And Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country will not accept any peace deal agreed between the U.S. president without Kiev's involvement. Over now to Anambra State in Nigeria's southeast region, where Governor Chukwuma Soludo has received the General Officer commanding 82 Division of the Nigerian Army, Enugu, and Commander Joint Task Force of Southeast Mission Udoka, Major General Oluyemi Olatoye, at the temporary Governor's Lodge in Amobia. General Olatoye, accompanied by his officers, are in the state to ascertain the security situation and to assure Governor Soludo of a strategy that will enhance security in all the nooks and crannies of the state.
It's a nocturnal courtesy call to Anambra State Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo by the General Officer Commanding of 82 Division of the Nigerian Army, Enugu, and the Commander of Joint Task Force of Southeast Mission Udoka.
Don't mind me.
Major General Oluyemi Olatoye is in charge of the 5 southeast states as well as River State. He commends Governor Chukwuma Soludo's efforts in ensuring security and assures him of a strategic and fruitful partnership.
I want to tell you that Your Excellency's efforts, by reason of your contributions to national security, are well noted. Just of recent, we established the Amuchidemba, which to me is a welcome development.
The visibly happy Governor Soludo gives him a background of the security situation in the state when he took office in 2022 and how the army played a critical role.
In January, we signed into law the Anambra State Homeland Security Law, which is quite a comprehensive, very comprehensive, and encompasses several axes, or what I call the axis of evil. It covers things from drug. Yes, drug is a federal offense. It's under the exclusive legislative list, but we have now in Anambra made it a property offense. Any property that is used for the manufacture, use, or sale of these hard and banned substances, that property will be forfeited to Anambra State.
Hours before the general's visit, security operatives had laid siege to the Okija community, where a self-proclaimed native doctor has been accused of unwholesome practices. The state security outfit, the Agune Chemba Strike Force, storms his shrine based on a series of petitions against him.
While looking into the complaints, we also received several videos, online videos, which the man himself made online, where he himself advertised the thing he does. First, he said he does okite. 2, he said he does shams for Yahoo and Yahoo Plus people. And thirdly, he said he does Awele. And the laws of Anambra State, particularly the Anambra State Homeland Security Law, forbids these things.
The suspect is arrested for further interrogation and investigation, while his shrine will be pulled down once there's prevailing evidence to do so.
To the courts now. The chairman of Honeywell Group, Obao Tudeko, was absent at the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos today for his arraignment on the charge of allegedly obtaining the sum of 12.3 billion naira from First Bank under false pretenses. His co-defendant, the former managing director of First Bank, Olabisi Onosanya, was however present in line with the commitment made by his lawyer at the last adjourned date. The third defendant, a former member of the board of Honeywell Flour Mills PLC, Soji Akintayo, was also present in court. The fourth defendant in the case is a company linked to Otudeko named Anchorage Leisure Limited. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Wale Olanipekun, who represented the first defendant, informed the court that his client, Obao Tudeko, had left Nigeria on January the 16th, 2025 for medical treatment in the United Kingdom, arriving at Heathrow Airport the same day. Mr. Olanipekun emphasized that Obao Tudeko left the country lawfully, and did not abscond. A counsel to the EFCC, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Rotimi Oyedepo, then asked for an undertaking from the first defendant, Otudeko, on when he will be back in the country so he can face his arraignment. A counsel for the second, third, and fourth defendants, senior advocates of Nigeria, Olasupo Shashore, Kehinde Ogunmiju, and Ade Adedeji, in their submissions, argued that their various applications challenging the court's jurisdiction should first be heard and determined before arraignment. The EFCC counsel, however, asked the court to discountenance the arguments and cited the case of Yahaya Bello, and Section 396(2) of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which provides that any preliminary objection to the validity of the charge can only be heard after the plea has been taken. After hearing from all parties, Justice Aneke adjourned until March the 17th to rule on whether to hear the arguments challenging the jurisdiction of the court. Still on the courts, Justice Chinyere Nwechono of the Federal High Court in Kuje has shifted ruling in the bail application of the former Executive Secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme, Professor Usman Yusuf, who is facing corruption allegations, to February the 27th. Justice Nwechono ruled that the defendant be remanded in the Nigerian Correctional Service facility in Kuje FCT pending the ruling on his bail application. Now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, reportedly charged Mr. Yusuf with a 5-count charge bordering on alleged embezzlement and conferment of undue advantage to himself as the boss of the NHIS in 2016 by approving the purchase of a vehicle at the cost of 49,197,750 naira against the budgeted sum of 30 million naira. The EFCC also accused Mr. Yusuf of retaining a private interest in a corporate entity known without due process, awarding a contract in the sum of 10.1 million naira in favor of the said foundation for the purported training of 90 persons when the actual number of trainees was 45. The EFCC further alleged that Mr. Yusuf knowingly acquired a private interest in an entity with his nephew, Khalifa Hassan Yusuf, by awarding him a contract for media and special public relations consultancy in the sum of 17,500,000 naira. The defendant, however, pleaded not guilty to the charges. Arguing the bill, the prosecution counsel, Francis Usani, informed the court that Mr. Yusuf did not comply with the terms of an administrative bail granted to him by the EFCC to report bi-weekly to its office. He further submitted that the defendant had boasted about his political connections and would abscond from the trial if granted bail. The defense counsel, O.I. Nabib, a senior advocate of Nigeria, however, pleaded for the release of the defendant as the alleged offences brought against him are ordinarily bailable. Justice Folashade Giwa Ogubanjo of the Federal High Court Abuja had quashed an amended 5-count charge of fraud and money laundering against a former Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, Dr. Modibo Kawu, and 2 others. Justice Giwa Ogubanjo quashed the charge against the defendants in a judgment delivered in the suit filed by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, the ICPC. After quashing the charge for being incompetent, the judge subsequently discharged and acquitted the defendants. The ICPC had in 2019 arraigned Mr. Kawu alongside the chairman of the Pinnacle Communications Limited, Mr. Lucky Amalua, Chief Operating Officer of Pinnacle, Tikpo Onifade, and Pinnacle Communications Limited on a 12-count criminal charge bordering on alleged misapplication of the 2.5 billion naira seed grant for digital switchover program of the federal government. Specifically, they were accused of misleading a public officer with the intent to defraud the federal government in contravention of Section 19 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. They pleaded not guilty and were granted bail in the sum of 100 million naira and 2 sureties each in like sum. However, Mr. Omolua died in 2020, leading to the amendment of the charge to 5 counts. Delivering judgment in the suit, the judge held that the prosecution failed to establish the ingredients of the charge. According to the judgment, while the prosecution did not tender any exhibits to prove conspiracy, it made no efforts in leading its witnesses to establish evidence of conspiracy. Now to the Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, which has adjourned proceedings to March the 3rd for parties in the petition to adopt their final written addresses. The adjournment followed the decision of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, to close its case without presenting additional witnesses in defense of Edo State Governor Monday Okpebholo's victory. On Wednesday, the APC had said they had 28 witnesses lined up to testify and defend Monday Okpebholo's victory, but then presented only 4 witnesses. During Thursday's proceedings, however, APC's lead counsel, Ferdinand Obi, announced that the party would not be calling any additional witnesses as previously stated. He told the court that the documents which they seek to rely upon to defend their case could not arrive from Benin City, hence they can't proceed with the case.
If
If you notice, all the witnesses that the third respondent has brought before the tribunal, counsel has made sure that during cross-examination, we confirm as a testimony from the witnesses that there was overvoting. From Eastern Northeast to Akoko Edo to Oredo and now Owan West. And I am very pleased with the response of the witnesses, especially for the one we just had now, Owan West, who was able to substantiate our claim in 3 different models that there was overvoting in Owan West local government area. So for us, we are pleased and we are hopeful that they bring this kind of witnesses again tomorrow.
The issue of overvoting, they spoke only on the units, not the entire local government. And so if there is an overvoting in a particular unit, when it was taken to the Ward Collation Center, it was cancelled. But the funniest thing is this: when a result came from a unit and the issue of overvoting was spelled out at the unit level, it got to the ward level and it was cancelled.
Still ahead on the news at 10, economic think tank Financial Derivative. Welcome back. The quest to ensure a peaceful and harmonious relationship between government and labor unions continues, and this time the federal government and the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association (NECA) have restated their commitments to social dialogue with employees to ensure industrial peace and harmony in Nigeria. Now, the Minister of Labour and Employment gave the assurances along with the Director General of NECA at this year's Labour Adjudication and Arbitration Forum in Abuja. Meanwhile, the National Industrial Adjudication Panel is advocating reforms in Nigeria labour laws to eliminate ambiguities in their applications.
It's a gathering of labor leaders and employers of labor in Abuja, put together by the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA.
So this is our contribution to industrial peace, our contribution to investment generation, investment retention, and it's our contribution to the growth of Africa.
The crux of the discussions center on labor adjudication in Nigeria, as the chairman of the National Industrial Adjudication Panel speaks to issues requiring urgent attention.
Some of the key areas for improvements are: 1, leveraging on technology to streamline case management, revisiting and reforming labor laws to eliminate ambiguity.
However, the Senate Committee on Labor and Employment is given the assurances of the legislative arm of government to reform existing labor laws.
I firmly believe that the leadership of the National Assembly, working hand in hand with the executive, under the guidance of our esteemed Speaker of the House of Legislature, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, we work together and forge pathways that will transform our labor landscape.
45 seconds.
The forum also provided labor leaders the opportunity to raise issues militating against industrial harmony in Nigeria.
If somebody was unfairly dismissed from work and the matter is delayed for 6, 7, 8, 10 years, some of them die before that matter is discussed. So that's the danger. There are processes before where you can use conciliation, you can use mediation, you can use even consultation.
How do we have industrial peace and harmony where government renege on collective bargaining agreement that they duly entered? These are issues we need to look at.
However, the Minister of Labour restates the commitment of the federal government to social dialogue with employees.
This government is always committed with a very good listening ears to talk to and to work with our workers. It's only when we don't sit down together, you discuss issues, that we see that things are falling apart.
Resolutions from these forums are expected to help employers of labor and their employees to have a peaceful working relationship that promotes social dialogue over incessant strikes.
So let's head to the nation's capital now, where Victoria Longjohn is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Victoria. Over to you.
Thank you, Ayo. President Bola Tinubu has stressed the need for African leaders to prioritize health as a national developmental agenda to ensure economic and national security on the continent. Now, this is part of the president's remarks at the Ministerial Executive Leadership Program, a meeting of ministers of health of African states on the sidelines of the 38th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The president's address was delivered by the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, who emphasized the crucial importance of sustaining and increasing domestic health financing. Our State House correspondent Larry Lasisi in Addis Ababa reports.
Gathered here for the third annual ministerial forum are over 42 ministers of health from the different parts of Africa.
We need to step forward.
Organized by the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention under its Ministerial Executive Leadership Program, the forum seeks to strengthen the capacity of ministers and member states of the African Union to address challenges to effective healthcare on the continent. The Director General of the Africa CDC paints a disturbing picture of what lies ahead.
From 2021 to 2025, we are losing 70% of foreign development investment. If you have more outbreaks in 2025, less funding, and you don't have medical countermeasures, we are expecting to see more deaths.
President Bola Tinubu, in his address delivered by the Minister of Health, called for a policy shift.
We must champion health as a national priority. Health must be positioned as a fundamental pillar of our national developmental agenda. So health is a matter of economic security, is also a matter of national security.
The summit also had a panel session where more issues were considered. For participants, Africa has to do better.
No doubt the present financing landscape is challenging, but to me, it's an opportunity for Africa to wake up.
It's about commitment, it's about leadership. And I believe on the African continent, we have more leaders that are thinking alike. And I think this is really the time to make the difference for the population, both born and unborn.
Is to use the little we have as resources and to try to make bigger impact in what we can achieve and try to do it within our own ways, which means solutions that are within our countries, created by ourselves to answer to our problems, should be prioritized.
The price of inaction has been clearly emphasized here, and is expected that this time, not only will the resolutions taken here be implemented, but that they will be done speedily. From Addis Ababa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
And the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike, says he has initiated dialogue to resolve issues of the FCT primary school striking teachers to return them to the classrooms. He said this during the inspection of some ongoing projects in Abuja. Mr. Wike explains that though the FCT Area Council Chairman are yet to implement the minimum wage, his administration is working to find a level playing field for both parties. And as a way of improving the economic landscape of the country through port operations, the West African Container Terminal WACT, operated by APM Terminals in Onne, River State, has welcomed the maiden arrival of MV Lotto vessel from Europe in partnership with CMA CGM. The new vessel signals the launch of a new maritime service called Eura F4, which the company says is aimed at improving logistics and shipping operations at the Onne port.
It's a celebratory atmosphere at this quayside at the West Africa Container Terminal, operated by APM Terminals Nigeria. They are here for the maiden call of the MV Lutu, a vessel from CMA CGM Europe Africa 4 to the terminal. Speaking during the ceremony, the CEO of APM Terminals Nigeria, Frederick Klinker, expresses pride at the achievements.
We see it as a strong vote of confidence from the great group of CMA CGM in the capabilities that WACT has been building over the last few years. As you're well aware, we have invested more than 115 million in upgrading the terminal with mobile harbor cranes, an RTD-operated yard, and state-of-the-art IT equipment.
The managing director for CMA CGM, Hinelda Ferreira, says the arrival of the MV Lutu marks the beginning of a new journey in the quest to strengthen the company's presence in the country and expand its services to customers.
As CMA CGM Group, we want to commit to all our customers to improve our service quality, our service transit time, our good rates, and especially to connect Nigeria, and in this case, Onne, with the remaining part of the world, on both sides, import and export.
Next comes the ceremonial cutting of the tape, signaling the launch of the Eura 4 service. Some of the stakeholders present include the Onne port manager and the Nigerian Customs Service, and they are all excited about the development.
MV Lutu is coming to Onne for the first time, and for that, we in Onne, that's Onne Port, we are very happy to receive her. And we can only hope that this maiden call, the maiden call, will not be the last one. It's a good development, it's a welcome development. In our own part, custom, we have to facilitate the trade. That's the source of custom service, to facilitate the trade. Time release partner so that there are no consignment will be delayed. Everything will be waiting at the time when it's due to be released.
With this significant launch, the hope is that WACT APM Terminals, in partnership with CMA CGM, will be well positioned to improve commerce to the southeast and south-south regions of the country. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
And that's it from the nation's capital. It's now back to Ayo for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Victoria. The Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, Credit Corp, has officially launched the distribution of tricycles and motorcycles to participants in the federal government's consumer credit scheme aimed at promoting the purchase of locally assembled vehicles. During the event in Lagos, the first set of beneficiaries received their vehicles, marking the commencement of the distribution. In collaboration with financial institutions and automobile manufacturers, the program seeks to improve access to structured vehicle financing for Nigerians.
In December 2024, the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, Credit Corp, launched a 20 billion naira mobility credit fund aimed at enabling Nigerians to access consumer credit for purchasing locally assembled vehicles.
Moving forward.
This initiative is set to benefit 50,000 credit-backed Nigerians in its first phase, providing them with the opportunity to own vehicles. Beneficiaries expressed their joy and satisfaction upon receiving their vehicles.
We are going to use it as a commercial. So we use it to carry passengers. So we earn our daily basis from it. Then we pay back to the company. This is the actual business we have been doing to support ourselves and support our family. Most of us, we use this tricycle business to sponsor ourselves to the higher institution.
In collaboration with key partners, this program aims to enhance access to structured vehicle financing, empowering citizens while promoting local manufacturing.
A vehicle today, you'd be purchasing between 30 to 60 million naira, one car. Whereas one of these kekes is one of these vehicles, these motorbikes. You're starting not small. We are starting to cover a larger number of people, and then we begin to go up the chain to cover people with larger ticket items, meaning things that cost more money for one.
And as I'm talking to you, Bank of Industry has promised to support one of the company that manufacture the tire for tricycle and motorcycle here in Nigeria, because they know the credit scheme is already supporting that credit called provides credit scheme to support the final product. So there are some interwoven, and that's why I say multiplier effect, because immediately one kick off, other will follow.
Among the critical partners is TVS, the largest assembler of tricycles in Nigeria. The management confirms their capacity to meet the demand generated by this project.
There is ample capacity within our industry and in our factory, which you have seen, you're right here, to produce much more. In fact, we were doing maybe 3 times the amount we are doing today. But then because of the situation, it has gone down. However, I'm very confident that with this new intervention of the government, this is going to be a game changer.
Action takes the risk algorithm, profile every of the customers through our technology, and then we're able to identify that this customer, through psychometric testing, through financial analysis, be able to say this customer is going to be able to meet our requirement for the loan and the credit card requirement for the loan.
As the consumer credit scheme unfolds, it only promises to change the lives of individuals, but also contributes to the growth of the local economy. The initiative also represents a significant step towards financial inclusion and economic empowerment for many Nigerians.
Let's get the very latest in the world of business with Joker Rogers.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Welcome to Business News. Economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company projects Nigeria's inflation to drop to 33.35% in January from 34.8% in December. Economist and Chief Executive Officer of FDC, Mr. Bismarck Rouhani, who sees the country's inflation as an enigma, says Nigerians should wait and see what the next couple of months will see to know which direction to head once more inflation figures come up from the NBS. The domestic stock market hit a new high in today's trading session as the all-share index crossed 109,000. Laddie Williams has more details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the local boss seems to be giving investors an early Valentine gift with a massive jump today, over 1%. Again, and 109,178 level, that was tested today but settled at 109,172 points, but with low trading volume. But again, it's counting now. Dangote Cement led the advances after the share price moved from a low of 431 naira to 474 naira, adding 10%. Markets here today return also increased further. That's at 6.07%. The market has risen this week 3.06%, and for the month 4.47%. Giving the bull the floor to dominate.
That's Business News. Back to you, Ayo, today.
Thank you so much, Joker. Here's Simon Pusey with our international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country will not accept any peace deal agreed between the US and Russia without Kiev's involvement.
Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace.
US President Donald Trump yesterday said that during a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, the pair agreed that talks to end the war should start immediately. Speaking to reporters earlier, Mr. Zelensky said it's important that everything does not go according to Putin's plan, in which he wants to do everything to make his negotiations bilateral with the US.
He'll come here and I'll go there, and we're going to meet also probably in Saudi Arabia. The first time we'll meet in Saudi Arabia, see if we can get something done. But we want to end that war. That war is a disaster. It's a really bloody, horrible war.
Hamas has said it is committed to implementing the Gaza ceasefire deal with Israel and will continue releasing hostages within the agreed timeframe. Following talks in Cairo, the Palestinian armed group said Egyptian and Qatari mediators had confirmed they would remove obstacles to the deal. There was no immediate response from Israel, but Egyptian and Qatari reporters said mediators had bridged the gaps between the two sides and both were committed to continue implementation. Israel said the ceasefire would end if Hamas did not return hostages this Saturday. Hamas had earlier said it was postponing releases over what it claimed were Israeli violations. A 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker has driven at a group of people in Munich, police say, injuring at least 28. Officers are treating the incident as a suspected attack. The suspect was known to police for theft and drug offences. Police say the car accelerated before hitting a trade union rally. An officer fired one shot at the suspect before he was arrested. The crash happened hours before the US Vice President and Ukrainian President were due to arrive in the city for the Munich Security Conference, but police say they don't believe it's related. More than 250 people from 20 nationalities who had been working in telecom fraud centres in Myanmar's Karen state have been released by an ethnic armed group and brought to Thailand. The workers, more than half of whom were from African or Asian nations, were received by the Thai army and are being assessed to find out if they were victims of human trafficking. Last week, the Thai Prime Minister met the Chinese leader Xi Jinping and promised to shut down the scam centres which have proliferated along the Thai-Myanmar border. 12 people have been injured after a grenade was thrown into a busy bar in the French city of Grenoble, local authorities have said. The incident happened at the Akshir bar, leaving 2 people in critical condition. The motive for the attack is not clear, but investigators say it may be linked to a settling of scores. Eyewitness accounts suggest the suspect, who is yet to be identified, may have also been carrying a Kalashnikov assault rifle. Liberian President Joseph Boakai has suspended more than 450 top government officials, including ministers, for failing to declare their assets to the anti-corruption agency. They will be off work without pay for a month or until they submit the required declarations. Boakai said that the officials had contravened the code of conduct for state officials by not being transparent about what they own. The president, who had pledged to fight corruption when he came into office last year, said failure to comply undermined efforts to combat corruption and ensure accountability. None of the crew, who fled a capsized trawler off the coast of Norway which resulted in the death of a fisherman, were wearing life jackets, according to an investigation. Ronald McKinnon from Peterhead died after being airlifted to hospital when the Njord vessel got into difficulty. A probe by the Marine Accident Investigation Branch said none of the 8 crew rescued from the boat's hull were wearing flotation devices during the incident in March 2022. And footage released by the Utah Transit Authority captures a driver's narrow escape from a train collision in Layton in Utah. The vehicle can be seen stuck in front of the train's crossing arms after being rear-ended by a pickup truck onto the tracks. Failing to reverse, the driver exits the car seconds before impact. Remarkably, there were no injuries.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. In sports news, 7-time African under-20 champions, the Flying Eagles of Nigeria, have been drawn in what has been termed the group of death as they will face former champions Egypt and Morocco as well as South Africa in Group B of the competition holding from April 26 to May 18 in Cote d'Ivoire this year. In Group A, host nation Cote d'Ivoire will take on DR Congo, Ghana, Tanzania, and the second representative from the UNIFAC region, while Group C sees title holders Senegal face Zambia, Kenya, and Sierra Leone. The club football Arsenal has confirmed that forward Kai Havertz will miss the rest of this season after sustaining a hamstring injury dealing seismic blow to their English Premier League title challenge. The German forward was injured during the club's warm weather training camp in Dubai. But that's your sports news. I'm Kelly. I give you guys back to you today.
Thank you, Kelly. And the main news again. The National Assembly has passed the 2025 Appropriation Bill after reviewing the key highlights of the document, outlining a total aggregate expenditure of 54.99 trillion naira. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. From everyone here, you have a good night.